let's get to this. A Missouri inmate is set to die today, even after a prosecutor fought to have his conviction released based on new evidence. And again, this isn't the prosecutor's office is fighting for this, not the defense office, the prosecutor's office. But here in Missouri, this is a very, outside of St. Louis and Kansas City, everything is very small and rural, which I guess is pretty much like most of the states, realistically, other than, well, no, that's how most of the states are. California has like the most big cities. California got Los Angeles, San Diego, Oakland, San Francisco, Sacramento. I don't know if that's a big city, but like it's, most states have one or two metropolitan areas. But here in Missouri, again, this is about precedent. Mike Parson doesn't give a damn if this man is innocent or not. That doesn't matter to him. To him, it's just another nigga in prison, the way he sees it and the way that the justice system here sees it. The office that prosecuted him wants his murder conviction overturned. The family of the woman he's accused of killing has agreed to a life sentence for the inmate instead of the death penalty. Breaking news. Justice Department sues Visa, saying it monopolized the debit card market and impacted price of nearly everything. We're going to check that out. Hold on, let me get this up here. Let me send this. Hold on. My bad, y'all. All right, here we go. But Marcellus Williams is scheduled to die tonight after Missouri Supreme Court and governor refused to grant a stay of execution following a flurry of appeals efforts based on new evidence. Williams was convicted in 2001 of killing Felicia Gale, a former newspaper reporter found stabbed to death in her home in 1998. The 55-year-old is set to be executed by lethal injection at 6 o'clock today. So in less than 4 hours, even though the prosecutor's office doesn't want this to happen. And, look, like the death penalty it's in addition to, what is it, like 4% of people who get put to death are found innocent or something like that? Maybe it's more, but that's the number that's in my head. But like, it's not necessary to put people to death anymore. It just really isn't. Like, this country has more than enough resources to not need to do that. This isn't a third world country. This isn't a nation that really, really is threatened by gang activity. Like you go to Mexico, you go to Latin American countries where the government barely has or doesn't have as much resources as the cartels. Like, this country basically has defeated organized crime within the country. Yeah, you still got organized crime here, but not like you used to. You just don't. When governments put people to death, it's making a statement. It's saying, you better follow our rules, you better stay in line, or else this could happen. But again, there's just this government is too big, it's too powerful, it's too wealthy to need to do that. We just don't need to do that. Like now, if you're dealing with a country that, again, barely has any money in its federal government, it becomes more necessary to uphold the image of power. But we don't have that problem here. So this shit just, even if the prosecutor's office didn't come out with new evidence, we don't need to do this to people. We just don't. If it's really that serious, let them be in prison for life. And that's including what the family of this slain woman wanted, was for him to just be in prison. But the need to, we are long beyond the need to execute people. We just don't need to do that shit anymore. All right, hold on, let me get back. But recently, the top prosecutor in St. Louis County joined Williams' attorney in asking for Williams' conviction to be overturned after new testimony from the 2001 trial prosecutor and recent DNA testing showing evidence contamination. The case raises the specter of potentially putting an innocent person to death. An inherent risk of capital punishment. At least 200 people sentenced to death since 1973 were later exonerated, including 4 in Missouri. Yeah, see, I mean, again, and more importantly than it not being necessary, 200 people since 1973 were later found to be exonerated. I mean, what do you say to that? Like, whoops, my bad. Like, you know. But this is why so many people have long fought for the death penalty to just be overturned and outlawed because of this. And now, Mike Parson, the governor of this state here in Missouri, where I'm at, he don't care, man. He's upholding precedent. That's all this is upholding the status quo. And Marcellus Williams, is going to lose his life just so that the status quo can be upheld. Williams's lawyers and St. Louis County prosecuting attorney Wesley Bell filed a joint brief Saturday asking the Missouri Supreme Court to send the case back to a lower court for a more comprehensive hearing on Bell's January motion to vacate Williams's 2001 conviction and sentence. The St. Louis Prosecuting Attorney's Office, which handled the 2001 trial against Williams, argued in the January motion that DNA testing of the murder weapon might show Williams was not Gale's killer. But the effort unraveled at a circuit court hearing last month after new DNA testing revealed the murder weapon had been mishandled prior to the trial in 2001, contaminating the evidence meant to exonerate Williams and complicating his quest to prove his innocence. Attorneys received a report indicating the DNA on the murder weapon belonged to an assistant prosecuting attorney and an investigator who had handled the murder weapon without gloves prior to the trial. Yeah, stuff like this will just get cases completely overturned a lot of the times. Williams's attorneys have also asked the U.S. Supreme Court to stay the execution. During a motion to vacate hearing August 28th, the prosecutor from Williams's 2001 trial admitted that he had struck a potential juror from the jury pool because, like Mr. Williams, the potential juror was Black. Williams' attorneys wrote an emergency request. Quote, there was a racial component to this. But the Missouri Attorney General's office disputed the interpretation of the trial prosecutor's testimony. He said they looked like brothers. In the end, the Missouri Supreme Court unanimously decided not to halt Williams' execution because his team failed to demonstrate by clear and convincing evidence Williams' actual innocence or constitutional error at the original crime trial that undermines the confidence in the judgment. See, again, this is just, we already made the decision, so we don't want to reverse it because that will make us look like our judgment isn't pure. It'll make us seem like the decisions we make shouldn't be trusted. When it's really just the opposite. I mean, when you're in a position of not just leadership, but in a position to make decisions over whether people live or die, showing that you have the capacity to admit mistakes makes you more trustworthy. It makes you more trustworthy if you're able to be like, I got this wrong, than to just not be able to do that ever. And again, this man's life is going to be forfeited over something. Over what? I mean, yeah, someone ended up dead, but even their family said just give him life in prison. But this, again, is another example of why the death penalty just shouldn't be a thing. Not in America. We just don't need the shit here. The victim's family supports life in prison. The St. Louis Prosecuting Attorney's Office said it reached an agreement with Williams last month under the consent judgment approved by the court and Gale's family. Williams would enter an Alford plea of guilty to first-degree murder and be sentenced to life in prison. But the state attorney's general office opposed the deal and appealed to the state Supreme Court, which blocked the agreement. The Williams case has pitted Bell, who became St. Louis County's top prosecutor in 2018 and is now a Democratic candidate for Congress, against Republican State Attorney General Andrew Bailey, who was seeking re-election. Bailey fought Bell's efforts to get Williams' conviction vacated, saying new DNA test results would not exonerate Williams. Well, what else could? If DNA test results can't exonerate him, then what else can? I don't know. Like I'm asking. I mean, this shit really is heartbreaking. And people are making efforts around the country. People are making efforts to change to change the Supreme Court's mind, to change Mike Parson's mind. But he's set on this. He's not going to change his mind. The U.S. Supreme Court is Williams's last hope, and we know what's up with the U.S. Supreme Court. So, former Missouri GOP Governor Eric Greitens previously halted Williams's execution and formed a board to investigate his case. See, look, I mean, and then after that, Mike Parson was like, scared. Nope. After Mike Parson took office, he dissolved the board and revoked Williams' stay of execution, the inmate's attorney general. You know what? Like, this just goes to show not just the power of racism, but how deep it runs, how deep racism really runs. Because, like, this is not, if Mike Parson was to commute Marcellus Williams' sentence, right, and just let him get life in prison, this wouldn't even really be a story. Like, people wouldn't, I mean, maybe here and there people will be talking about it, people who follow criminal justice reform, people who are advocates for criminal justice reform. Yeah, in those circles it will be a victory. But other than that, it's just, I mean, like, Mike Parson acts as if if he pardons Marcellus Williams, or if he commutes his sentence, it'll just be political hell for him. Like, everyone will be outraged because he's a fucking racist. Like, that's why he thinks that. Even though if he commuted Marcellus Williams' sentence, again, it will be a victory for people who want criminal justice reform, but it wouldn't be massive news the way this is now, the way we're all talking about it, because a man is going to be put to death even though he shouldn't be. It's the power of racism and how deep that shit really runs. Booker T, you said, do I think Janet Jackson claim that Kamala Harris is not black will hurt Kamala in the polls? Hell no. hell no, that ain't gonna hurt Kamala. No, definitely not. No. But yeah, no, this is just I agree. It's a lot like this, and that's why I said, like, that the power and how deep his racism runs, because this is so important to him that he's like, no, you have to die. When in reality, again, like, if you commuted his sentence, people wouldn't even be talking about it that much compared to the way they are now. But no, this shit is fucked up, man. This right here is one of the biggest reasons why being involved in local politics is so important. And also, as I've been thinking about, like, things that are not related to this, like, when it comes to, like, for instance, like, things like Medicare for all, like, I don't see that ever happening federally, but it can happen at the state level. You know what I'm saying? It can happen at the state level. Things like universal basic income can happen at the state level. Things like expanding Medicaid, expanding Medicare can happen at the state level. So better criminal justice reform, that also starts at the state level. So yeah, this shit is just incredibly unfortunate. And I mean, what are you going to do, again, other than get involved? That's all we can do. That's really all we can do, is get more involved at the state level. There's only so much we're going to get in terms of sweeping policy change federally, because it's just so much going on in this massive, gigantic country. But if we want real, true reform, we got to do it locally, and we got to do it at the state level. But yeah, Mike Parson is just a racist, and he wants Marcellus Williams to die because he thinks that it's going to be good for him politically, and he thinks that he's upholding the status quo because black people are dangerous. That's really it.